Eshelman of CHN Site. Welcome to the line, Matt.
Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So, here at the line, we want to have an honest conversation. We want to speak authentically and real. And I know that's someone who you are. You're authentic and real.
Thanks.
And so,
Try to be.
yeah. So, I'd like it if you would just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. And just to start here, for those who are listening, maybe not watching, if you're watching, you can see, but where are we right now?
So we're at a job site that we're getting ready to start on Monday in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. It's for the general RV, so we're putting in a bunch of parking lots so they can organize what they got going on now. We talked about that this morning, but a lot of campers sitting out in fields and stuff right now. So
Yeah, a lot.
yeah, a lot. Can't see them on the camera, I don't think, but
No.
yeah, we're surrounded by campers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's exciting. I mean, we've been waiting a long time to get it started. I think we signed the contract back in July, and we're finally just now getting started here in Jan, or I guess we're in February already. So it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Yeah, February is a great time to do a podcast,
Yeah.
Outside.
as I see your breath rolling.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So CHN Site,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about what you guys do for those that are listening. I mean, you were just talking about some of it, but
Yeah, so I mean, it's in the name, right? So we're a site work business. I mean, we do everything from, shaping the earth, to moving all the dirt, putting all the pipe in the ground, the paving, the curb. I mean, we do everything that nobody sees, right?
Yeah.
Like I always talk about, like the pavers always show up, so we typically sub that out, and they get all the glory. Like all the pavers did such a great job, and I'm like, what about the 7 months of stuff we had to do so get ready for the pavers? But we do all the stuff that nobody sees.
yeah,
But it's fun. I always tell everybody I got the best job in the world. I'm like a kid. I get paid. I get paid to play in the dirt. Like how much better does it get than that? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
that is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome. So, Matt, how did you end up here? Like, tell me a little bit about your story.
So I've been blessed with a lot of really good people in my life and a lot of really good opportunities. I mean, where it started, I was 13 years old, worked at a campground, and the new guy had just bought the campground and he wanted to do a bunch of improvements. So he bought a backhoe and bought a couple other things. And so he would just, every day we were putting sewer lines in the campsites and just doing all kinds of different stuff. And then there was a guy that had moved from Massachusetts to where I was working at, and he was staying in the campground until he found a house, and his family was still up in Massachusetts. So every day after work, he would come, and then we'd stay till dark every night and just continue working on improvements at the campground. And I got to be pretty good friends with him. I mean, I'm a 13-year-old kid, and he's a 40-year-old man, but somehow we just connected. And he's like, look, the day you turn 18, come see me, and I'll get you a job. And that's what I did. So turned 18 and went to see him, and he gave me a job at a local excavation company, and that's where it all started. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And now, I know you love titles, but what's your title at CHN Site?
I'm the president.
You're the president.
I am.
So you're the boss.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that all started when you were 13 and you started there at the campground. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's been a great journey. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
So you guys, you work pretty much all over the state, don't you?
I do, yeah. We have a team of 25 guys out in Pittsburgh, and so we do a lot of work around the Pittsburgh area, and
Okay.
and then we have I think it's 100 plus guys back here in Central PA, and yeah, we get around.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty awesome.
So here behind us, we have a D8
Mm-hmm.
and what do you call that? A pan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Van.
I mean, that's what I would call it, but
Yep.
I didn't know, since I'm talking to a professional, if, I'm an electrician by trade, so
Sure.
I have names for everything, and I have like 3 or 4 different names for the
Right.
same thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people call it a scraper too, but yeah, pan or scraper works.
okay.
Either one.
Okay. And just for some perspective
Mm-hmm.
here, if you don't mind, we talked about this earlier, but I want to give people a sense of the breadth of what we're looking at here. There's a little bit of dollars there.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, the 627, the pan, that's a brand new one of them is about 1.4 million right now.
Wow.
And then the dozer is probably right around $1 million, maybe just a smidge under that. So yeah, it's
Wow.
quite a bit of dollars. And I'd always think about it, you go buy a house or something like that, you pay $500,000 and it lasts you for the rest of your life, right? Like that thing there, I could spend 1.4 million on it, and in 7 to 10 years, it's done. So either got to rebuild it or go buy another one. It's insane to me how expensive this business is, and spend that kind of dollars for something that lasts less than 10 years.
It's a lot of risk.
It is a lot of risk. There's a lot of reward too. So
Yeah.
definitely a lot of risk.
Yeah. So when you talk about, it lasts so long and then you keep saying it wears out. What wears out? Like talk about that for me. Like, is it the engine? Is it
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I mean, think about what they do every day, right? Like they're running around, just beating themselves up all day long every day. So yeah, I mean, usually around 10, 11,000 hours. You got to rebuild the engines, and the hydraulics are going. Like we just did a certified rebuild on that pan there is probably 20, 25 years old. So
wow.
a couple of months it was about a year ago we did a certified rebuild on it, which that was basically they tear the whole machine apart and everything gets replaced and is new. And then they repaint it for you, put a new seat in, so it feels like a new machine. But that's a $650,000 investment versus the 1.4. But then you'll get another 10,000, 11,000 hours out of it. So another 10 years, and then you do it all again.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So, started at a campground, working and whatnot. What are the skills that you need to become an excavator? Like the things that you start with that you don't have before you went to the campground.
So, really all you need is attitude and effort, right? Like that's what you got to start with. So if you show up every day with attitude, a good attitude, wanting to learn and show up and give effort, like that's the first step. If you do that, we can teach you anything. It's not a complicated business, right? Like it's hard, it's cold, we're sitting out here in the cold today.
I was going to say, I know it's cold. I know it's cold.
Yeah, my toes are starting to feel it. But
yeah,
so it's cold, it's muddy, it's all that stuff. But like I say, it's not a complicated business. It's there's strategy involved, right? The strategy can be complicated, and putting the plan together. Like if you have a good plan, like you usually win. But that's the complicated part. But the work itself is not complicated. Now operating equipment, that can that takes some skill and some talent. Like I always say, that's why I'm the boss, is because I'm not that good of an operator, right? Like, so they're like, we gotta get this guy out of a machine and put him somewhere else. So, but yeah, that takes some talent, and some people are just born with it, and others aren't, and I wasn't born with it. So but I prefer to work with my hands anyway. So
they say that those who can't do, they teach or they coach or they
right.
So and you and I are both sitting here in the chairs and other people are doing. So what does that say?
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about strategy. What do you mean by that? Like what strategy is there in doing earthwork?
Well, so there's an order to things, right? And if you do things in the wrong order, it can cost you a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money, right? Like, so there's just, knowing the work, know what needs to happen before this. So because rework kills you, right? Like, so time you do something in the wrong order or don't make the best decision at the beginning, then you lose that. And anytime you gotta go back and do something a second time, it's just, it's never good. So yeah. So it's all about that. And then the strategy too is we have this job site, but we have 5 other job sites within probably 10 miles of here, right? Like, so how can you tie all the jobs together to give one an advantage, or make sure you get it on midday, right? Like if this one needs dirt, do I have another job close by that throws dirt and that kind of stuff? So like even when we're bidding, like those strategies we're tying all the jobs together to see if one job can give us another advantage. And then, like, for example, we have a job a couple miles away. Well, that pan, like it's that close. I didn't put it on a low boy. I just got permission from the township, and we drove it down the road, right? Like, so
next time you do that, you got to call me. I want to send some guys out with cameras to film that. That'd be pretty cool.
So that's another strategy and advantage, right? Like, so anytime we have work that's in a really tight circle, it just gives you an advantage. And if something happens here and we got to stop, or something got in our way, like you can just send guys 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away, and they can be productive, and you're not losing all that, that time while they're traveling an hour and a half or something like that. So it gives you a lot of advantages that we really think about when we're bidding. Bidding jobs that are close to other jobs we already have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. I honestly never knew that there was that much strategy in moving dirt.
No, yeah.
I really didn't. Like, it makes sense to me, to think about this job might have dirt and you get it here, and I'm sure that changes the bid.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In a positive way.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see if you're going to, are you doing all right? Because it's cold.
I'm good, brother.
Okay, all right. I'm going to last as long as you. That's
We'll see who wins.
Well, I didn't
We're
say
both stubborn men, so we might be here until tonight.
This might be the longest podcast that we have ever had.
Great.
Yeah, good. So I'm just curious, talking about strategy and not talking about what it takes. You talked about being an operator. Some people have that, maybe some people don't.
Sure.
And we deal with that some in our industry. We don't deal with that you deal with, which I'm curious how you handle this and how this affects things. But like, we're sitting out here in the weather, What? How does the building doesn't exist yet? And I mean, this isn't going to be a building; it's going to be a parking lot. But it's like, how does it affect you in managing a company where you're so affected by Mother Nature?
Yeah. So I believe that I don't like excuses, right? Like, so it's just a fact.
I don't
it's what
like
we gotta
excuses.
do. Yeah, I don't. It's all about results, right?
Yeah.
Like, so look, the weather is going to be what the weather is. That's one of the things I cannot control. So we just figure out how to work with it, right? Like, we don't use an excuse. We just do what we need. When the sun's shining, you make hay, right? Like, so you just push harder when the sun's shining. If you're working in mud, you deal with the mud, because the other choice is you sit at home, right? Which isn't an option. So it's different every day. Every soil's different. Every job's different. We have some jobs that can rain 2 inches and you show up the next morning and it's not even muddy. You know what I mean? Like, you can just go. And then this job here, I know the type of dirt it is. We'll have ruts 2 foot deep, but we're going to push through and we're going to keep going, because there's always a schedule. There's always, we pride ourselves on our commitment to our customers, and one of those commitments is always schedule. And we're willing to do what it takes to make sure we honor that commitment. So it's just, it's different every job.
Yeah.
But
well, schedule is the driving factor, I think, on every job, and that's a big selling point to clients, being able to maintain schedule, because that's the fight.
Sure.
I think a lot of people don't realize in construction, it is like a knockdown, drag out. Like, it's hard.
It is.
If we're not competing, it's not just low bid wins the job and you do this and you make money. The abilities to lose money seem like they're infinite.
Oh my gosh! And in seconds, like I can burn $10,000 in 5 minutes, with a couple wrong decisions, or it's insane.
Well, and things are always moving. Like for other trades, we all have to work together on a job to get things done, because it's like none of us. I find it really interesting that none of us actually build anything alone.
Right, for sure.
Like, I can't get into a building and wire it up if you don't do your job.
Right.
The paver can't do his job if you don't do your job. You guys are kind of like the first boots on the beaches, in that way. That way.
I always say we're always the first guys on the job, and I also believe we're always the last guys on the job, because we got to come back and finish. You know what I mean? So we're always the jobs last longer for us than for site guys, I believe, than anybody else, just because we got to get it ready, and then after everybody else is done, we got to come back in and clean it up. So they last a long time, and that cleanup part's the biggest risk, right? Because that's always the hardest part, to be productive and be efficient and just clean up and get done and get out. That's the game there. That's the other strategy, right? Is having the right people that show up and that can push and finish, and those aren't always ideal conditions. It's tight, it's slow, it's tedious, right? Where when you're out here in the beginning, it's wide open, nobody's in your way, and you can run 100 miles an hour, and then it goes from 100 miles an hour to about 2 miles an hour. And then that 2 mile an hour period is the biggest risk on most of the jobs, as far as the profit margin and that kind of stuff. So it's just picking the right people and having the right guys. So we try to have a crew of 2 or 3 guys that pretty much are our finished guys, and that have gotten really good at it and excel at that part of the job. So, because it's super important.
So there are even different parts of your job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one guy. There's different parts of moving dirt and finishing things.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. So we've reached that point in the podcast where I can't feel my toes anymore. But it also is the point where I like to ask a question and kind of break it up. So what is a piece of gear or a tool, your choice, clothing, tool, gear, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that you cannot live without? Like, if you had to choose one thing, what is the one thing that Matt Eshelman has to have?
That's a great question. So there's a couple that come to mind, but honestly, I'll go back to your toes, like a good pair of boots, right? Like, because you're in the mud, you're in the cold. Like, if like I when I'm on the site, I try to walk the site. I don't like to drive the site. You see some guys driving everywhere. Like, I try to park and walk, because that's how you see things. That's how you feel what's going on, and
it sure makes your team feel different too, doesn't it?
I think so. I like to believe so, right? Like, it's super important to me to that they feel appreciated, because they truly are. Like, without them, I'm nothing. I really am. Like, I couldn't do it all myself. There's no way. So but to answer your question, a good pair of work boots is super important. Which,
yeah. Well, I agree. I think I've been wearing boots almost since I was like 14.
Yeah.
And My wife thinks it's funny. I've had the same pair of sneakers for since we've been married almost.
Okay.
Because they don't really wear out. Because if I want to be comfortable, I'm in my boots.
Absolutely.
And she thinks that's the weirdest thing. But if you buy a good pair of boots for the first couple of weeks, they're stiff and they hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But man, once you break them in, there ain't nothing that feels better.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, that's a good call. Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about something that I thought was really cool, and I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but on that machine right back there, that D8, there's a logo of your CHN Site sticker, and around the sticker you have these reflective lines, gray and white, around the sticker.
Yep.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that? Because you told me something really cool about that.
So it's super important to us to thank the servicemen that have served this great country, right? So the night before in World War II, the night before we stormed the beaches of Normandy, the Allied forces all got together and they're like, "Hey, this is going to be crazy tomorrow. Like let's paint these stripes." Now they use black and white, but let's paint these stripes on all the wings of our airplanes on the bottom and the top, so that in the heat of battle you can see who's on your side. So we chose to put the stripes on all our equipment, so that's how we honor the men and women that served and built this great country. So that's our way of saying thank you. So if you ever you can Google invasion stripes and see the story, but that's where the stripes come from.
So I absolutely love that so much. Can I steal it?
No.
And create a company and have invasion stripes? Like, wow, you said no? I'm going to steal it anyway. So that's awesome.
Thanks.
I mean, that is really awesome.
Thanks.
I think that's really cool.
We're blessed to live in a great country, and I mean, a lot of great men and women sacrificed and build it for us, right? Like, so I think it's important that we never forget that, and we make sure we're always paying whatever kind of honor, respect we can to those folks that were willing to do that.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think that freedom and liberty are something that we probably struggle with and need to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we maybe take for granted. This past week, I was doing a podcast in New York, and we stopped by the 9/11 Museum, and it was pretty moving.
I'm sure.
And it reminded me a lot of what it is to be an American.
Yeah.
And the cool part about it was I remember where I was when that happened. I remember what I was doing, listening to Paul Harvey on the radio. Never thought that I'd be recording my voice and having conversations that people might listen to.
Right.
So, but being there, I was really struck by how much tradesmen and tradeswomen played a part in bringing our country back.
Sure.
I mean, the museum was just done with such great care, and I was struck by looking at the work that had to be done. I wonder what it would have been like to work on like what I would call a sacred site.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be, and they just did a phenomenal job. It was really moving.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So another thing that I find really interesting about your company is on your website, it says that I think it's 70% of leadership in your company comes from the field. So tell me why that is.
So I think it's super important to grow from within, right? And I think it's like that, to me, it makes you a better estimator, a better superintendent, a better anything if you start at the ground. I mean, that's where I started, right? Like at campground. When I went to see that guy to get that job, my first 6 months on the job was I walked around a rock crusher and I shoveled out all the shit that fell out from underneath the crusher so it wouldn't get built up and clog up the belts, right? Like literally for 6 months I did that. And then the second job I did was I built a Versalock wall. So I carried pallets or blocks from a pallet to a wall for the next 6 months. So my first year in the business was doing that. So I think to me, it's just super important to come up through within, and it builds better. You get better, the team buys in more when you build from within and have somebody that, that's earned their stripes and worked up. And look, it just gives you a level of experience and a level of knowledge that you don't have just coming out of college or something like that. So that's why we try to do that. And it's super important to me to, to give the people opportunity that deserve the opportunity. So, and build from within. So that's how our team has the 70%, is we've always tried to do that.
What does that do to the guys who start, and what is I don't like to talk about ladders in careers because I don't think it is a ladder.
No, I agree.
You know, I think it's a field and we're a team, and you know, there are different roles, and there's nothing wrong with this role versus that role. But what does that look like for the? What do you think it does for the man or woman that comes into your organization, and they're starting with the first thing that you have them do? Does that make sense? What I'm asking you?
Not really. Sorry.
So, yeah, can we cut that out? I want to sound intelligent. What I'm asking you is, so it's my first day on the job at CHN Site, and I see that you guys promote from within. Not only do you promote from within, but you proclaim it on your website. You say, this is what we do. What do you think that does to the person that it's their first day? They've never done this work before. They are the kid that came from the campground, and or even better yet, they are the kid that came from the city or the concrete jungle or wherever, and they know nothing about this, but they're starting at CHN Site with the first job that you give them.
So my hope is that it gives them the belief that if they show up every day with that attitude and that effort that I talked about at the beginning, like that if they put in their time, right, and they're willing to work for it, like you can go all the way to the top, right? Like it's all, if you show up with that attitude and that effort, like we'll teach you the rest. Yeah. But just that's the story that it tells to me, right? Like you have the opportunity to earn anything you deserve.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the thing that I love about the trades is. For the companies that are building and are growing and that are wanting to improve, that is the coolest thing about the trades is, one, someone can never take away what you learn.
Absolutely.
And two, there is no ceiling. Yeah. You know, I started very much like you, and now I'm leading an organization, and it's like I never would have imagined that. And I think that there is this lie that is out there that when we are younger and we're starting, it's like, well, this is all I'm ever going to do. This is all I'm ever going to be. And if you have that attitude and that effort, as you call it, there's nowhere that you can't go.
100%.
And I think that, whether you're young or even if you haven't realized that yet, because when I started in the apprenticeship program, I want to be careful because we talk about the next generation and we talk about, young people. And listen, young people, you guys are important. You girls are important. But there are other people. And I remember I sat down in apprenticeship class, and I was like 18. And there was a 40-year-old guy that sat down next to me, changing his career, wanting to go somewhere different. And it's like, if you have that attitude and effort, it doesn't matter if it's been 40 years of your life and you're making a change. It doesn't matter if you're young. I believe that if you have the attitude and the effort, that you can go wherever it is that you need to go.
100%. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, look, God bless some of us with talents that others don't have, right? Like that's another part of it too. Like, but you can still have a great life. You can still provide for your family, right? Which is why we all do what we do. I mean, to take care of our family and to provide for them. So like sometimes you can't go all the way because God didn't quite bless you with a couple things you need, but you can still have a great life being an equipment operator and provide for your family and take care of the things that you need to take care of and earn everything you want. So it's but the opportunity is there. So it's attitude and effort, and then a little bit of what God's gifted us with, if that makes sense.
Oh, it absolutely makes sense.
So.
It absolutely makes sense. And I think what you're gifted with, and as you say that, what God's gifted you with, I think that you have what you need to be where you need to be.
Amen.
That's the other thing that, we're not all cut out to be the president of an organization. And that doesn't mean that there's any less than. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means I remember I promoted a guy to be a project manager once, and he hated it. He was a phenomenal foreman, worker, and that was so different in the work. And it was like, and I didn't understand why he was miserable, because, and this is why I don't like the ladder analogy.
Right.
Because it's not about climbing a ladder. Nope. It's about growing.
Absolutely.
And when we grow together, it's like, well, where do you best fit? Maybe you're not to be a foreman. Maybe you're a supporting guy, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
And if you go after something that you're not, that's not in you, then don't go after it.
Sure.
Because it's going to make you miserable.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of guys struggle with this. They see the foreman has a truck. They see that he, has this, and they feel like he tells people what to do, and it's just easy. I mean, I've gotten calls from our guys, and they're like, well, the foreman's sitting in his truck on his laptop, and I'm out here in the ditch. I'm like, the foreman has the pressure of that whole job,
right?
And for it to make, and the responsibility.
Absolutely.
And man, I don't even know if we can. Oh man, I don't want to say this on a podcast. I don't know if we can pay people enough sometimes to take that responsibility.
Sure.
I don't know that there's a dollar value. It's got to be something that's in you, because they have the responsibility of that job on them.
Right, and it's not just a job. I mean, it's the people that's working there. It's their safety. It's making sure they get home safe every night. Like all that. That's a lot. That's a lot to take on. And look, there's probably a lot of people that could do it, but don't want to do it because they don't. You know what I mean? They don't want that responsibility, which is totally fine too. Because to your point, like. You don't, you can be where you're meant to be, right? And like, you got to show up every day and enjoy your job. Like, I really believe that, right? Like, it makes life so much better when you get to wake up every morning and look forward to going to work. Like, if you're in a spot in your career or doing what you're doing and you're not looking forward to going to work, like, that's shitty. It sucks, right? Like, but if you can get up every morning, like, I wake up every morning excited to go to work, looking forward to the people I get to stand beside every day. Like, I love my job, and I'm truly blessed with where I'm at and what I have and who I get to work with. And it just, to me, it's every day it's not work, right? Like,
I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I remember when that happened, and the same, our team, I love the people that I work with. I actually really love the challenges. It's like, when things go wrong, I love coming up with solutions to problems.
Absolutely.
And when you have a team, that's fun.
Absolutely.
It's like when the problem arises, and we talked about this a little bit earlier too. It's like when something comes up in our mind, we make it way worse than it actually is.
Absolutely.
We really, and the longer that the time goes on, the more that we, in our mind, we like play things out. And I don't know why it is, but it's so easy to play it out in the negative. Like, I have to fight my thoughts. I have to fight them, wrestle them down, and say, no, I'm not thinking that way.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's the human nature in us, right? Like, we like, for some reason, human nature takes us to the negative, right? But to your point, like, it shouldn't, right? Because every problem is just an opportunity. Yeah. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to make somebody feel different than they felt before. You know what I mean? Like, if you can. It's hard to do, right? It took me a while to figure it out, but if you can switch your mentality and think about it as an opportunity for one of those couple of things that I just mentioned, like that, that's what every problem is, just another opportunity to learn and grow. So, but I think human nature, like the world we live in and just everything that's going around with us on now, and just everything's right in your face with the cell phones and all that, is really easy to go to the negative, because I think half the world does by default. So, I mean, I think that's where it starts, but I think it's just how we're made. But if you can make a choice, just like anything else in life, and choose to look at things differently, choose to think about things differently, and if you can do that, like, life's a whole lot different than if you choose not to.
So how does Matt Eshelman do that? Like,
it's I mean, you heard me say God earlier. Like, it rests in my faith, if I'm going to be honest, right? Like,
I like honest.
So it's all about my faith, right? Like, I believe what I believe, right? And that's super powerful to me, and I can rest in that and know that if I'm going after things with the right intentions and the best of intentions, that it's just going to work out, right? It might not always work out the way I think or the way I plan for it to work out, but it always works out, right? Like, and so that's honestly where I rest, and it gives. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of peace, and it's just that's how I think about it, as an opportunity instead of a negative.
I think that's the funny thing about God. I mean, my faith drives what I do. I've said that on this podcast, and I think that it's the funny thing is we have a plan of, well, this is what should happen. This is how it should go, and God's plan is always better than ours.
Amen to that.
Sometimes it takes me a while to realize that, but always better than ours.
Absolutely.
And I think that. That's where we need to be focusing. For me, I share that with you. That's how I overcome the negative. And just because I haven't found another way that works.
Yep.
So,
agreed.
Yeah. So, you guys, like we talked about, the invasion stripes. We talked about where you've come from. Talk to me a little bit about why you're sitting here in a field freezing our toes off. I literally can't feel my big toe anymore.
I hope they don't see me shivering. I think that's a little bit of nerves too.
Yeah,
but
nerves. Yeah, yeah.
We're being honest, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
But so say that one more time. I apologize.
So no, it's fine. It's fine with the freezing toes. I can't think straight either. But like, tell me why we're sitting here in a field and we're having a conversation, because this is not something that you want to do, but yet you believe. You know, the line. We're here to talk with people about stepping up to the line. And what is that line? That line is lifting the view of the skilled trades, meaning stepping up to do something that makes a difference.
Sure.
Going after what it is that is going to show people that, hey, this is a good career. Hey, you can make money. Hey, this is a fulfilling life. It's satisfying. So my question to you is, Matt, why are you stepping up to the line and having this conversation with me? Because, you know, you could be with your family right now, and you're sacrificing that time to be here. That tells me that this is important to you, because I know family is important to you.
Absolutely.
I know that a lot, if not all, of what you do is for them. So why are you sacrificing that time here to be here today?
Yeah, so thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I met you, when was that, 3-4 months ago, right?
Yeah.
5-6 months ago maybe.
Yeah.
But so and you came to me with the story of the line and why you're doing what you're doing, right? And there was I think you brought a bottle of bourbon with you, which helped a little bit. So we're being honest, right?
Yeah, we're being honest.
So, but anyway, I mean,
I'm wishing I had some bourbon right now.
Yeah, warm us up, right? But I mean, it was a great conversation, Josh. And just, I mean, I remember back, right? So it's super important. Like the skilled trades, like there's fewer and fewer people that are doing it. And I keep telling my son, like, find a trade. Like, he works for us now, and whether he stays or not is up to him. But like when I think about the opportunity that he has in 5, 10, 15, 20 years to if he has a skilled trade and sticks with it and can do things that not many people can do, like he's going to be able to name his price. He's going to be able to do what, you know what I mean, depict the work he wants. He's going to be able to do all that stuff if he can stick with a skill. So I think it's super important that the young people coming up realize that this it's a great opportunity. The world is theirs if they're smart and they show up with that attitude and they give that effort and then learn something, because there's not many people doing it anymore, and there's a lot of guys retiring and, you know what I mean, hanging it up, the experts. So if they can become an expert and they can take that time and put in the time and have that attitude and effort, I mean, they can have whatever they want 20 or 30 years from now, because there's fewer and fewer people wanting to run equipment, to be an electrician, all that stuff. So it's just I just want to make sure that the young people understand that the opportunity that's in front of them. And obviously, like, I need some young people, right? If I'm going to be honest, like, I'm hoping that some people see this and I'm like, oh, I want to go run that 627. So that kind of stuff. So does that answer your question?
Oh, it absolutely answers my question. I think that I mean that's why I'm sitting down and having an honest conversation with people, because you know, and I hope people listen to this, and I hope that affects it, because we need to be getting it out there. Yeah. You know, that one of the things that we're trying to do in the construction space is we need to be lifting the view, and the way that we do that is, I'm shocked at how we are the last to market when it comes to leveraging, whether it is, you know, Instagram or your website, or, I mean, there's an excavation company that I know of, and they do a lot of work in the DC area, and they're not a nobody, but they don't even have a website.
Right, that's crazy.
And it's like, it's like, it's a little, I think, short-sighted of us. You know, when we're in construction, we sometimes get so focused on the work that we don't focus on, I need to communicate what I do.
Sure.
You know, and I've already said arrogantly, I've been like, well, my work should just speak for itself. But you've heard this phrase, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to see it, does it really make a noise? Yeah. And it's like, if you're doing your work and you're so focused on the work in construction and you're not promoting it, and listen, a lot of us people in construction are not big on self-promotion. That's not something that we do. But if you're being honest about it and telling the truth, that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
You know, and our creative director, he says, well, you got to go where the eyes are. You know, he's like, Josh, you have to be on Instagram. You have to be on this. You know, I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah,
and
me
I'm
either.
very proud of that.
Right.
Now, you watch, next week I'll be on TikTok and I won't even know it.
Right.
So,
Right.
but we need to be promoting and doing that, and that's what we're doing. And then not only that, you and I are also working together in promoting the training of the people to do the work.
Sure.
And let's talk about that just a little bit. What is the importance about training? Because we've talked about, you can teach someone to be a good operator.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach someone to be a good mason, carpenter, plumber, electrician. You can teach them that. But there's something missing beyond that.
Sure.
What is that thing that's missing? Like, what is that thing that the guy that he is focused and he is like, I'm a good electrician and I'm really good at that. And if he just focuses on that, what are the other things that he's missing? Or her,
Sure.
him or her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, so it's the opportunity to lead or to build people, right? It's your people skills it's a soft skill, right? But
Yeah.
but that's super important and is one of the things you need to talk. You talk about climbing up that ladder, right? I'll promote somebody with a little less skill if I believe they're a great leader, right? Like, to me, that's the difference maker between a good leader and a bad leader, is if they have those people skills. Like, we always talk about a leader is somebody that gets people to want to do the work that has to be done, right? Like, so that's what I'm always looking for, is trying to find somebody that has the ability to get people to want to do the work that has to be done. And if you can find somebody that can do that, like, for me, I can't sit there and tell that guy how to best run that 627, right? But I can get him the want to run that 627, you know what I mean, and believe that it's an awesome job and an awesome opportunity. So that's the skill that's hard to teach, but it needs to be taught, because that's how you move. Now, we don't do our ladder up; we actually do our ladder down. I'm at the bottom, right? Like, is how I think about it, because I'm, so it's all about responsibility. So I'm responsibility for everybody above me, like, you know what I mean. So that's how we think about it.
That's really good.
Our responsibility, when I call it a responsibility chart, not an org chart, but our responsibility chart is upside down and I'm at the bottom. So that's just how we think about it. So we don't talk about climbing up the ladder, we talk about going down the ladder.
So you said to me earlier that you don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but when you do listen, you listen because you want to learn.
Sure.
And right there, what you just said, if you're listening, this is learning time. This is learning time. If you're listening, Matt just touched on some really key things. If you want to build an organization, you want to build a team, that, the responsibility, that ladder going up, mm-hmm. and leading people and getting people to want to do the work, and a responsibility chart, not an org chart. Yeah. Because if it's not a responsibility chart, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what your organizational chart is. Because if you don't have someone that feels the responsibility and understands that and can manage that and can handle that, then it really doesn't matter who's in your organization.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that teaching soft skills and just well-roundedness and teaching leadership is important. I think for me, the biggest thing that I see that's needed there is on the job, people need to care.
Sure.
If you care about the job. So we're sitting here in a field that you're going to be turning into parking lots. And it's like, and it's for someone else, and they're spending their hard-earned money, yep. And it's providing work for people, and it's providing, it's not about just doing the job, getting out and getting your money and getting away. Nope. The other thing with that is you're trying to build an organization, a reputation, something that is going to last. And so that comes from caring. And I think that when we care about the job, when we care about the people, when we care about the client, that is the beginning of how we begin to be more well-rounded and how we lead people that they want to do the work.
Absolutely.
That they want to work with us.
Yep.
Yeah,
the job's not a win, right? If the customer's not happy, if the team isn't successful, if we're not all successful together, then it's not really a win, right? Like, if I make a ton of money and the customer loses a ton of money, then we didn't win, right? Like, nobody, like, we have to all win. That has, to your point, we have to care about the whole everything, from the customer to our team to just the bottom line. All that matters. But if somebody's walking, we always talk about relationships, right, at the company. So relationships to me are a 50-50, right? Like, which means each each person in that relationship or that transaction has equal, right? If it's not 50-50, somebody's using somebody else, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we try to walk away or try to show up every day with that 50-50 attitude, or walk away at the end of the job. You know what I mean? We want them to feel as good as we feel, right?
Yeah.
Like that, to me, that's the definition of a relationship. It's the same with me and my wife. Like anytime it's not 50-50, like there's strain in that relationship, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we try really hard to give and take equally, right? Like we talk about giving. You got to give and expect value and respect, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that goes at home, that goes on the job site, with everything. So if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. I was just moving my leg there and it's frozen, so I had to help it with my hand. So you did say that you've listened to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. But that means that we've reached the point where if you've been listening, I don't know if you've heard any of the ones where I ask you about mistakes, because this is about learning. And if we're being honest, as we like to say, that's what we learn from.
Absolutely.
We learn from our mistakes. So Matt, you can always pass on my questions. That's okay.
Sure.
But my question for you would be, what is a mistake that you've learned from, that is something that you can share with us, that, you know, I that has helped you grow and be able to move on, whether it's in the job or it's in life or whatever?
So I make mistakes every single day. Let's be,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And we talked about that earlier. Like everything I've ever learned in my life is because I screwed it up the first time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, everything I've ever learned is because I didn't do it right the first time. So, I mean, if you're asking me for a specific mistake, that's a tough one. Because there's a lot of them. I'm trying to think of one worthy of this podcast, right? Like, I know a couple times in my career, like we've put people in positions that they probably weren't quite ready for, right? And like,
Yeah.
and I take responsibility for that, because it wasn't their fault that they failed. It was my fault that they failed, because I didn't give them the tools that they needed to be successful in that spot, or I put them there when they weren't ready, or pushed them there when they didn't really want it, that kind of thing. So there's been a couple of those, and I mean, we've been blessed and been able to, a lot of those people are still on the team, right? Like, we were able to move them again to a different spot and put them in a spot where they could be successful, when it worked for them and it worked for us. So, but I just, like, most of them, the mistakes that really hurt are the ones I make around people, because I mean, that's a tough one, but I mean, we always try our hardest to figure out a spot, because we never want to lose somebody that shows up every day with that attitude and that effort. So I really regret the mistakes I've made around people, but like I say, we try really hard to save that when we do.
Well, I didn't ask you to like tell me the ones that hurt the most, but man, that
Sorry.
is the truth of it. I mean, you're hitting me with that, and I'm thinking of people that I have. You know, the one thing about being a leader or even being the boss that people don't realize is our mistakes affect people.
Yeah.
And we're going to make mistakes, and if you're too afraid to make them, then you're never going to grow.
Sure.
But then, how do you deal with when they affect people? And you know, I can think of mistakes in my career where I've had to lay people off, where I've had to let people go, where I've put people in the wrong position, and actually by putting them in that position, they failed entirely in our organization, and they're not in our organization anymore.
Right.
And they should be, but they're not because of me.
Because it's your mistake, not theirs.
Yeah.
That's the hard part to deal with. Is like,
it is.
I did this to him. He didn't do it to himself. You know,
Exactly.
or her, right? Like, that's a tough one to sleep with at night. So,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but
Well, I mean, your faith and forgiveness probably comes in a lot with
it helps.
that. Yeah,
Definitely
for sure.
helps. But
For sure. So, what is a motivation or an encouragement that you can share with our listeners, those who are either listening or watching, for how they can move forward in life and career and whatever?
So, I mean, my motivation is providing opportunity for the people that deserve opportunity, right? Like, so I don't know if that works for everybody, but like, that's why I get up every day. That, like, for me, it's never about the money we make. It's not about any of that. Really, to me, it's about providing opportunity for the 120 people that work for us. And like, that's why I want the company to grow. That's why we do what we do, is not to make more money. It's to make sure we're providing. I mean, I was in a career once where I was stuck, right? Like, I felt like I could do more, but I couldn't do more because it was a family-owned business, and there was nowhere else for me to go. And I remember how I just felt stuck, right? And then I got complacent, and I wasn't looking forward to going to work every day because I knew there was nothing in front of me. So it's super important to me to make sure there's always something in front of the people that deserve something, you know what I mean, that deserve the opportunity to grow. So that's my motivation. So
Okay.
if that makes sense.
No,
But
it does make sense. It's good.
It's super important to me to make sure I'm always providing opportunity for the team, for that growth, and if they want it, then it's my job to make sure that opportunity is available. Because if the company doesn't grow, you can't move up, because unless somebody leaves, is their only way they can move up to the next spot is if it gets vacant somehow. So I want to make sure that we're growing. Which if we're growing, then we need more project managers. We need a vice president. We need all that stuff. So that's why we grow, is to make sure we're providing opportunity. So that's my motivation.
No, that's good. And I think that's a motivation that anybody can have, whether it's your first day on the job.
Absolutely.
You know, providing opportunity, you can be your first day on the job, or you can be at the bottom of the ladder, as you said earlier, meaning leading the organization, being responsible. You can provide opportunity at both places.
Absolutely.
And the way that you do that is by sending it, by getting out there, doing the work, by caring, by leading, by doing. And you know, a leader doesn't mean that you're the foreman. I love, people misunderstand what leader is. It doesn't even mean that you're the boss.
Right.
Everybody can be a leader in your own way and in what you're doing.
Sure.
And that starts with caring about what you're doing and actually putting that in what you do.
Absolutely. I mean, I can think of a specific example right now. We have a pipe layer on one of the pipe crews, right? He's not the foreman. He's not the boss. He's not anything but the pipe. I shouldn't say anything, because the pipe labor is super important, but he's not any of those titles, but he leads that crew, right? Like he gets those men to do more than they would do if he wasn't there, right? And that's the other definition of leader is, getting a team to a place they wouldn't go on their own. And even though he's the pipe layer, he gets that team to a place they wouldn't go every single day, just because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
So.
I think that, and I don't know why, and like you said, human nature plays a huge part in this, but we really, and I feel like it's even a bigger deal in the trades. And I don't know if that's because, we don't have a degree, or we don't have this piece of paper, but like titles seem to be this thing that screw so many people up.
Sure.
Like we're so focused on, I need that title. I need that title. Like that's what I need. And it's like, titles really are meaningless.
Yep.
I mean, they really are. And I remember when I became president of our organization, and I was like, oh, I don't need that on my card.
Mm-hmm.
And the realization was I knew who I was, and if you know who you are, then you really don't need to be going after the title.
Agreed.
Like I knew that if I needed to fire someone, I could fire them. I didn't need the title on there. I knew that if we didn't win the work or we didn't do the job, that was my responsibility. I didn't need the title to remind me. And I think that in the trades, we get so caught up on titles. Now, I have learned that you need titles so that people outside your organization know who you are and what your role is and where to go.
Sure.
But I think that when I was young, and I think that others when they're young, really struggle with going after the title, because if you do that again is taking you to a place that might not be for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the title is sure as hell not worth the responsibility.
For sure.
Like, I mean, the foreman, superintendent, whatever it is, those titles and that responsibility we talked about, neither one of us can ever pay anybody enough to be responsible for all of those people. There's just not enough money out there.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I really appreciate having this conversation and you freezing your ass off out here with me.
Oh, good.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us and to talk and to allowing us to sit here on this beautiful job site with you on this beautiful morning.
Yeah.
So
privilege and an honor. I appreciate the invite. So,
thank you for stepping up to the line.
Thank you.
So when you guys are listening here, let me just close with this and challenge you that, you need to show up with attitude and effort. If you show up with attitude and effort and you begin to lead, then the sky is the limit. You can go from being a 13-year-old kid to working in a campground to being the president of an organization that has 130 people across an entire state that is moving iron and earth and affecting change for people every day. Those are the things that you can do if you show up with that attitude and effort. And Matt, that's what you've shared with us today. You've taught us, and you've given people that are listening to this podcast here today something that they could learn. So take that with you when you go out to the job tomorrow. Take that with you when your boots hit the dirt. Step up to the line.
Thanks, Josh.
See ya. All right, that's a wrap.